If you're thinking about building a new home but haven't found that perfect piece of property yet, well, you're gonna wanna watch this video. We've got a local expert here today to talk about everything you need to know about finding that perfect piece of property. I'm Justin Jankowski, and I'm joined today by Jon Wendt and Nate Olson from Next Home Priority. Nate, why don't we talk a little bit about your background and what the process looks like when clients reach out to you and start that property search process. And don't forget to tell them, I know you're not going to bring it up yourself, but don't forget to tell people about that award you recently won too. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, so hey, thanks for having me. I was a teacher for 14 years and transitioned into real estate, had a love for it, started investing in rental properties myself when I was a teacher, and just kind of felt like it was a natural fit. So made that transition. Recently won the 2022 National Rising Star Award for the Next Home franchise, which was a pretty cool award, and very thankful for that, to work with great people.
Tell us a little bit about what does that initial process look like when a client first reaches out to you and says, hey, we're looking for land. I guess what are some things you go through with them? Yeah,
so we have a meeting, kind of start to discuss, all right, what are you looking for? What are your goals? What is this land going to be used for? Is it hunting property? Are you going to be building a home? Are you going to be putting a camper out there? And from there, I think it's important to meet with a reputable lender, find out what you're approved for, what can you afford, and then have that conversation, whether it be with yourself or a spouse maybe, and just because you can afford a certain price, what do you want to spend, right? Do we want to be, house poor, as my dad always called it growing up, and if you still want to go on vacations and still want to do stuff or build that beautiful Golden Eagle log home, we can't spend all of our money on this land. So let's set a budget and then let's start our search. So after that, we can look at different areas that we want to be in. And then, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the land on the lake? Are you looking for 5 acres? Are you looking for 20 acres or maybe 100 acres? And do you want to be doing some fishing on that property? Do you want to be doing duck hunting, just enjoying nature? Do you want to be close to four-wheeler trails, things like that? So from there, we set up our search, and you will start getting automated text messages or emails when properties come up that check those boxes, and then we discuss when we want to go take a tour.
One question I get asked a lot, Nate, is when a customer calls, they say, well, I'm working with a realtor, but how do I know for sure that land's going to be buildable?
Yeah, so you want to work with a local agent that has those connections, maybe with the planning and zoning, knows who to call to find out, if we buy this land, can we even build this house, right? Or is this, land going to be suitable for a 3,000 square foot house, or can we only build a 1,000 square foot house? Can we build a house at all? And you don't maybe want to build in an area that they're going to have a storage unit right next to you, like commercial buildings, right? We might want to be in a residential area. So first off, you can kind of call the city or the local government, I guess, right? Talk to the zoning. And then during the offer as well, if you're not sure, we can put those in there as contingencies. So those contingencies are put in there to protect our buyers, to make sure that if we do go through with this land, that we are able to use this land for what we're intending it to be used for.
Awesome. That's a huge piece of information right there. I think a lot of clients are building in areas they're not from. These are second homes sometimes that we're building. And they're scared that maybe they don't know if they buy this piece of property, they spend these thousands of dollars on this property, and then come to find they can't build on it. And then what do they do with that property? That's a huge peace of mind just right there. That's awesome. That's great information.
Yeah. So when we purchase land, the sellers will always provide us with a vacant land disclosure report. So on there, they have to reveal, to the best of their knowledge, anything that might be unique to the land, wrong with the land, or special, like those assessments, special assessments where you might have to pay extra taxes for a lake district because they're doing dredging that year, and all of a sudden your taxes are going to go up by $2,000 for the next 3 years. There might be something like forest cropland, where all of a sudden it's in a DNR program, and you can't clear cut it because it's in this program for another 5 years. So we want to be aware of that when we're working with our buyers, so that we can lead them to make the right decision for what's best for them.
What are some other things that might restrict people from from building on a piece of property? Is it like maybe some high water tables, or rock below the ground, or do you see anything like that that might be like physical there, like that they couldn't build on, or you run into situations like that, or is that not a concern?
Yes, yep. In our area, I think the water table would be the biggest one. Other parts of the country, we might be dealing with bedrock, right? And where it's harder to build a basement, or it's going to be much more costly. So what we do here is called a perk test, even, to see if it's buildable and can we have septic system out in the country. Are you going to have a conventional septic system or a mound system? And there's different costs associated with that. So that's something that I want my buyers to be aware of before they make that purchase.
Right. A perk test, I think, is just basically digging a hole to see how fast the water drains. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's very, very simple. Again,
Okay.
I don't install the septic systems myself, but they, just like you said, Justin, they dig a hole and they pour water in it, and then they just time to see how long it takes for that water to drain. And they do it in multiple spots, and then we'll tell you where you could build or where you could have a drain field or a septic system.
I see. So sometimes that kind of takes the place, I guess, of the geotechnical report. Yeah, I know. I think that's a good thing to do. I've seen it range from like $1,500 to maybe $2,500, and I urge clients to do it in those mountain states because it could save us huge fees down the road. Like maybe we could design this property without that report, assuming we're putting in a full basement, and now we start digging the hole and putting the foundation in. Now we're hitting bedrock. So now we got to stop. We got to redesign that home or whatever it may be. So that's one thing I would urge clients to do in maybe those mountain estates, but.
And it just saves you on foundation costs too, because if we don't have that information, we're going to assume worst case scenario for the soil conditions, and you may end up with oversized footings or extra rebar in the foundation that maybe you didn't need because the soil was good enough to go with a little bit smaller footings. But if we don't know that, we're going to assume worst case just to protect ourselves when designing the home.
Right. Totally forgot about that point. That's good. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, you mentioned high water tables. Yeah, we run into that a lot too. And we see a lot more slab on grade, crawl space foundations now, just because of those water tables. So, but yeah, slab on grade makes it very easy for that client to maneuver through that house, eliminating steps. That's our clientele a lot of times, is trying to make that home very livable as they age into that home. So,
it really is amazing, in our location, right? Half an hour, 20 miles away, we could have a very high water table. Across the river, it's very low. So it really is important to work with local builders, real estate agents that understand the area, because you don't want to be caught on the wrong side of the river where the
wrong
water
side
table.
of the tracks.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So where you're building in wetlands versus that sandy soil.
Yep, very key. Yep.
So when a customer reaches out to you, Nate, do you typically, if they're looking for land, do you typically obviously go through where they want to build, what kind of key features they're looking for? I guess, is there criteria beyond just the budget that you're looking at and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can set up our searches to, cover a 100-mile radius or an entire state, let's say. And then from there, we can kind of break it down by like the size of the property, right? Do they want waterfront property? Do they want more than 5 acres, or, between 20 and 40, somewhere in there? And then we kind of cater that search to their specific wants and needs. And then it will only pop up properties that check off all those boxes.
Okay. And how often do you guys get advised of property before it even goes to the market that you could maybe refer customers to? Does that happen, or?
It does happen.
Okay.
So I have a long list of people that are ready to buy, 20 acres in our area. Everybody wants that chunk of land out in the country, a little piece of heaven out there. And so there's a long waiting list, and a lot of times land is just sold through word of mouth. It doesn't even hit the market. But it is important to work with somebody and let them know that you're looking for land, because if you don't ask, then there's no chance for you at all. So whether it's you working through the real estate agent or finding out from, a buddy at work that, hey, their uncle is selling some land on the outskirts, and then you might want to get in there, work with that agent to make an offer that is going to protect you still, but you get the fast track, I guess, and the first dibs at that land.
For sure. You get that insider information
Yes.
working with a specialist or a realtor.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome.
And a lot of our customers, to Justin's point, might be looking from outside of their state, so to not have that inside information. It's not like
right.
they're ever going to know about that property hitting the market unless they're working with somebody
Yes.
who could advise them. I imagine you're seeing land, especially lately, kind of go pretty fast too, selling quick as soon as it hits.
Yes. Yep. Like I said, there's that long list. We haven't really been as far as land goes, it hasn't seen the effect of the higher interest rates now. People are still want it.
Still buying it.
Yeah, still buying it. And in our area, a lot of it is tied to whether it's ag land or hardwoods, whether it's that swampy land or not, and that will just affect the price drastically. But there's a wide range.
Sure.
Smaller lots, 5-acre lots are going to go for much higher than per acre than you would
right.
see like a 40-acre lot go for.
Okay, so let's say the client purchased, found that property, thinking about buying it, or maybe did buy it, and then they're coming to us and they want us to design the home to that property. Some of the things that we look for when we're designing a home to a piece of property is a survey or some sort of information about that property. I think there's kind of 3 big or main pieces of information that we're looking for. I mean, it's a topographical survey if there's a lot of change in the topography of the land, or maybe it's just a plat survey. And there's also the situations where there is no survey. It's just a big chunk of land. It's pretty flat. It's pretty easy and easy designed around. Are those surveys something that the seller typically has, or is the buyer doing that, or is it both, or what's the situation there?
Yeah, great question. That's something that we negotiate.
Okay.
So when we're going up against multiple offers, and we know that's a hot property, we might say that, hey, we want it surveyed, but the buyer's going to pay for it. If we know maybe we're the only one on the dance floor, if we might say, hey, we'll give you $100,000 for this property, but we want you to mark the corners and pay to have it surveyed.
Nice.
So yeah, great question.
Okay. And then, there's also the water properties or waterfront properties that may have certain setbacks within them, from the water, I should say. Original high water mark is what we see a lot. 75 feet seems to be the magic number, but it differs from municipality. So how would somebody find the setbacks or that information? Basically what we're trying to do is create a building envelope, setbacks from the side lots, maybe from the road. Is that information that you get into with them, or the surveyor, or what?
Usually like planning and zoning would cover that. And I would also recommend maybe talking to like the Lake District, because sometimes they have these lake districts that will set certain rules. We're finding not so much with the building site, but the purpose of the build, right? People want to use their new cabin for recreation 50% of the time and then rent it out as an Airbnb.
Right.
And they might say, no Airbnbs on this lake. So the zoning as well as those lake associations would be the important people to talk to.
Okay.
Now, you as a realtor, could you assist a buyer to get into the, touch with the proper people? Like, could you pass that information on to them and say that these are the ones you need to call and talk to about that?
Yep, absolutely. So we try to assist, but we don't want to ever, just kind of a CYA. We're never saying like, hey, yep, you're good to go. And then they're like, hey, I thought this was okay. My realtor said so.
Right,
So
yep.
it's not our decision ultimately, but we do want to make it easy. I'm not just going to say, yep, you're on your own. You gotta figure this out. We're going to put them in touch with the right people. You
mentioned lake districts. We also are looking for information like HOA, architectural guidelines, that might change the way the home looks, or how many square feet they want, or how many levels it has to be. Is that information that you can get them in contact with, or do you reach out to the? Yeah, sometimes it is included in the associated docs, we call it, with the listing. So we'll look at that. I can talk to the other agent that's listing it and say, hey, do you know anything about this? Can you send us these files?
and they do that. So yeah, that makes it a lot easier for our clients.
Talking about associate docs, I guess what are some of those documents that might come that, you know, a buyer might say, hey, do you have these on file? Because a lot of customers, when they come to buying land, maybe they've never bought property before. They've always just bought an existing home, and so they don't know the proper documents to maybe ask for. Are there certain ones that are kind of the normal, you know, that, hey, you should ask if these are on file or not?
Yeah, so sometimes it would be a survey. If they've done a survey, you'd get a certified plot map. And then you'll always get a vacant land disclosure report where the owner goes through, and it's, you know, 100 questions. Are there abandoned storage tanks on the property? Is this part of a DNR, you know, wetland maybe? And so they just answer yes, no, or does not apply to the property. And it kind of gives you a cue. Are there any easements, things like that we want our clients to be aware of? So the survey, the real estate condition report, or the vacant land condition report, and then any covenants maybe, or like lake association, things like that, they'll throw in there sometimes.
You mentioned a little bit before about utility costs, or costs associated, I should say, with the property. What are some of those things that might come up that might cost more, or you need to think about when you're purchasing a piece of property, like utility stuff?
Yeah, so internet cable, right? Is that on your road, or are you going to be getting Elon Musk's Starlink to get your internet? And is that important for your job as well? If you're work from home, I've had a lot of people that don't buy land in certain areas because cell phone coverage isn't great, or they don't have internet yet, and they're going to have to spend a crazy amount for Starlink. So there's that. We talked about the perk test already, and the different costs associated with, you know, how well the land perks out. Holding tanks versus a mound system versus a conventional septic are all going to be very different. You might be buying in an area that already has sewer and gas, and so that's going to be a cost savings for you at that time. And then also depending on where your house is being built, and that comes, you know, you guys come into play there with the design. If we're 100 feet off the road or a quarter mile back in the woods, the price just keeps going up every foot. I think past, maybe 75, 90 feet or so, each area is going to be different, but that price to get electricity to your house is going to keep going up and up.
Yeah, and those are all things you may not, I mean, you got to think about, but you may not know right from the beginning, you know, those costs associated with the property. And like a septic system is going to help, or not, I shouldn't say help, but we're going to have to design around that too. You know, we're going to have certain setbacks from a septic system or the septic field and from a well, you know, and that's going to come back into the survey. I think a survey, if you're on a tight piece of property, if you're on a lakefront property, if you're on a mountain property, you know, something with some very, you know, large changes in elevation, I think that's a key piece of information, key thing to have for a client. We're going to be able to take that survey then and import our design into that survey. So now we can see how those grades are hitting the home. Are we going to need to tuck that home into the hill a little bit and put a retaining wall around the garage or whatever it is? A client I was just emailing this morning, we have a 35-foot max height we need to maintain. So that survey is going to be a key piece of information to have. Again, it's a cost that might be incurred when you know, or maybe the seller is offering that, but it could save you thousands down the road in design fees and you know, extra concrete costs, like you mentioned, John. So all those things come into play when purchasing a property, and I think you mentioned a number of times, having a specialist, having somebody in your corner to think about all those things is super key, super important.
Mm-hmm. In this area, what kind of property are you seeing be the hottest type, you know, selling? Is it larger acreage? Is it lakefront? Is it kind of just a mix? What do you?
Yeah, I think people want the lakefront, and they want probably that 20 to 40 acres. The bigger parcels, 100 acres, it's a little bit harder. You as the price goes up, you lose the amount of people that can afford to buy it. And so then your pool of buyers shrinks. So You put a 10 acre, 20 acre parcel out in the country, it's gonna go instantly.
Is that right?
And we're seeing a lot of customers now, I think, and maybe you see, being from the realtor side, where a lot of the good lakefront properties are bought up and built on. So now customers are actually buying those old homes, tearing them down, and building new homes on. Have you seen a lot of your clients put in offers that way? Or?
Yeah, personally, not yet.
Okay.
So, but I have, my grandma has a cabin on a lake up north, and there's been several houses that have, they bought 2 houses, tore them down, and then the little cabins become a big mansion on the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess things for people to think about there, just from my experience anyway, is can they rebuild outside that footprint, or do they have to maintain the existing footprint, stuff like that. So maybe that's things they could talk to their realtor and see if they can figure out.
Yeah.
And even maybe too, 80 years ago was the cabin built closer, and now when you tear that down, now you gotta be back that 75
Be
feet.
back
So,
further.
yep.
Right. No, we run into a lot of those scenarios on lakefront properties. We're here in the upper Midwest. We deal a lot with lakefront properties, and every municipality is a little different. Sometimes you can take the average. I did one just south of here on a little lake south of here, and we were able to take the average of the neighbors. So that pushed that home closer to the property than they expected. So that was key.
Another value to working with a local agent is really figuring out maybe what the future holds for that land. Like what's the development look like in the nearby area? Could you kind of touch a little bit on some of that information?
Yeah, right. With urban sprawl, you might have a beautiful 5 acre lot for the next 5 years, and then all of a sudden they build Cabela's, and you're staring at a parking lot, in 10 years, which wouldn't be good. So I think it's really important to not only work with your local agent, but I like to go and talk in the community and find out, what's going on, what is the plan, right? 3 weeks ago, we were down in Madison looking at some property, and it was a long drive for us, and we stopped at a local tavern to have a burger and a beer, and talking to the bartender, she actually turned us away from the property. So she started telling us about, the crazy neighbors and some of the other stuff that was going on in the politics in that area. And my buyer just was like, yeah, I'm out. That was enough. And that's all he needed to hear about the property. So it really is important to not only, again, work with that local agent, but do some research, talk to people that are in the community, talk to people that maybe are on that lake or in that subdivision, and find out what's going on, what's going to be in this meadow, a couple years from now. Is this a protected area? Is this DNR land that's never going to be built on? Perfect. Or could this be bought up and turned into a Walmart?
So Nate, I think one of the main points you hit here is working with a local representative. Somebody is an expert in their field, like a land specialist, a realtor. You're located in central Wisconsin, but no matter where a client is building, I think it's a great idea to reach out to that local expert. If somebody is looking to reach out to you, Nate, how do they get a hold of you quick?
Yeah, we can go to nexthomepriority.com or give me a phone call at 715-347-4247.
Awesome. Well, Nate, we appreciate your time today coming in and giving all the background that you've learned over the years in your field. Certainly appreciate it. I hope our clients learned a lot too.
Thanks for having me.
Imagine a life where your home is a work of art, where nature and luxury embrace, with a custom Golden Eagle log and timber home. Our expert team is here to guide you every step of the way.